Listen, folks, we have a big conversation coming through. But before we get into the conversation, have you completed your senior six or you wish to enroll for further university studies? Mount Kigali University is a place for you to come if you're looking for quality or programs that are market driven. Listen, offers in the School of Law, there's a master's in law, health sciences, technology, business, media, creative arts, hospitality, and tourism studies. Come to Mount Kigali University today, and you can call them up on 0788-125-088. And no one wants to do business with bad internet. At least a reliable partner is Zuba Broadband. They will connect you to up to 1 gigabyte per second, and we're in Rwanda. Why don't you reach out today? Go to their website, which is www.zubabroadband.com. Send an email to sales@zubabroadband.com. They say it's innovation in every connection. Without any further ado, let's get down to a big conversation today on Kigali in the Morning.
Living Entrepreneurship by Salty with Jesse, Juliana, and Ephraim Ramwengi. A business conversation like no other on 94.3 Royal FM.
Ephraim will be joining us so shortly because he's late. And he will give us.
Traffic, yeah.
He must be stuck in traffic, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I think he didn't calculate very well his movements and he probably got stuck in traffic. If you don't move early, you're definitely going to get stuck there.
But we have visitors in the studios who will be helping us on this conversation. Ephraim should have been here to introduce these visitors. He will have to buy breakfast.
He will buy breakfast for this.
He will buy breakfast. So we have Festus and Rebecca in the studios. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Jesse. How are you?
Good, thank you. Just come a little bit closer to that microphone and, let's get this a little bit much more intimate, right?
Get cozy.
Yeah.
That intimate sounds a little bit weird. Cozy sounds good.
I thought we were talking about entrepreneurship. Now we're getting real cozy.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here, especially on a Tuesday morning. Festus, welcome.
Thank you, Jesse. How are you doing this morning?
We are great. All I know is that you guys are all in the space of entrepreneurship. But I'd like Rebecca to first give us a bit of who you are and what you bring to the space of entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jesse. So I'm a transformational leadership coach. I focus mostly on leadership. And in that, I focus most on self-leadership. So who are we as a human being when we show up in our business? So I work both with corporates and I work with entrepreneurs. And what I bring to the table is very much the inner game. Let's look inward and figure out why are we making the decisions that we're making and how is that impacting our business? So that could be with entrepreneurship in general. A lot of entrepreneurs bring their internal limitations onto their business. So let's say that they have confidence issues with themselves. They will bring those limitations of lack of confidence onto their business. They're going to show up as an entrepreneur who is struggling to make big, bold moves because they lack that confidence to do so. So very often when I work with entrepreneurs, the first many sessions that we have is looking inward and figuring out where are you holding yourself back? Why are you looking small in terms of what you're trying to do? And how can we look at just creating a much bigger future for you and your business? And what would that look like? What kind of person would you have to be? How would you step into that role?
It sounds more like therapy.
A lot of people like to call me the business therapist. I'm not a therapist though, but it definitely has some overlaps perhaps. Yeah.
Is there anything like business therapist though?
There should be. I think there is, but you can't really call yourself a therapist, I believe, without having some sort of, or you can't call yourself a psychologist at least without having a degree in psychology, which I don't.
So what does your session look like when you sit down with a typical entrepreneur? Does that take you maybe about an hour talking about what?
So it usually takes more than an hour actually, because in order to go deep, you have to just go through the steps for a little bit longer. One of the first things that we talk about is, so what do you want your business to look like? Describe to me what the peak of your business, what does that look like? And even then people tend to play small. It's like, I would just love, to serve everyone in Kigali. Is like, why Kigali? Why not Rwanda? Why not East Africa? Why not the continent? Why not the world? Why are we keeping your goals small? Because if you keep it small from the beginning, how are you ever going to test your limits to what you're able to do. So there's a lot of just tearing down, and there's a lot of fear that comes up. You know, people are scared of being big and making bold moves. Like, but what if I want to serve all of Africa and I end up only serving East Africa? And I'm like, well, it's a whole lot bigger than Kigali, right? And why is it that we want to make decisions based on avoiding disappointment? I mean, you really don't get far in life if your main driver is avoiding disappointment, avoiding pain, avoiding difficult situations, avoiding difficult conversations. If you want to step into being the kind of person who can do amazing things and have an incredible, impactful business, you got to be able to release that hatch and just say, let's go all in. Let's go big. Let's look at what it looks like. And then once we look at what does the business look like, we're looking at, okay, so who are you in this business? What kind of person are you? What kind of conversations do you have? What kind of decisions do you make? What time do you get up in the morning? What kind of food do you eat? How do you stay fit? What kind of friends do you have? Like you just had the conversation before. What kind of books do you read? How do you spend your time? How do you rest? You know, so we're looking at what does that identity of that kind of person look like? And then how can you step into being this kind of person even before your business is there? A lot of people think, oh, once my business is big, I'm going to be the kind of person that has a big business. Like, no, you got to become the kind of person first, because then you'll get faster into that type of business.
Is it important what time I wake up if I want to really get ahead in life?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of people say, oh, you have to get up at 5 a.m. or the 4:30. It's like every year it gets earlier and earlier, right? Now Bill Gates gets up at 3 a.m. Everybody wants to get up at 3 a.m. I think what is important is that you follow the rhythm that works for you. I know people who do the best work at midnight. Like their best work is done at midnight. And then they have some mentor telling them, you have to get up at 5 a.m. It completely disrupts them. You know, what works really well for them. But the thing is, if you're already the kind of person who gets up late when you know you should be getting up early, and you know that your future person who has a thriving business gets up early, it's a message to yourself that, hey, maybe you need to work on your sleeping patterns.
Festus, how different is what Rebecca does from what you do?
I think it's pretty much complementary. I would not say different because I work with businesses, but also work with the business owner as well as the employees of the business. So it's like a threefold approach, or 3-dimension, so to speak. So first of all, understanding, like what Rebecca was saying, understanding who you are as the business owner, right? What is my vision? Why am I even in this particular business? Why am I selling milk instead of mandazi, right? And then from there, then what kind of business are you building, right? What are some of the gaps that are within your business that you know about, that you may not even know about? So I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, but mostly on the business level. I also work with organizations that work with entrepreneurs, right? So for example, an organization that has a mandate to train, say, 500 entrepreneurs over the next X number of years. So I come in and I kind of like support them to bring that to life. So this would be some of the elements of the business, like sales, like branding, like marketing, communication, leadership. So we talk about, because sometimes when we think about a business, we just think about profit, right? Once I'm able to make profit, that's enough. What about values? What about what you stand for? At what cost are you making those profits, right? Also, we talk about how do I price, right? For example, am I pricing? What is my strategy for pricing? Am I pricing based on the cost of production only, or based off of value, right? I could price a phone at 100,000, but because of the story or the inspiration behind it, somebody might be willing to buy it at $1,000, right? So understanding the kind of values that people place on products and selling beyond just the product, but the experience, not just the features, but the outcome, you know, stuff like that. So it's very much in line with what Rebecca does, but beyond the business person or the entrepreneur themselves, going into now all the way to the people you are employing. Now you're running a business, you're having people in. How do you treat your employees, right? What does that say about you as a person? For the fact that I have a big business and people working and my employees are treated like, you know, nobody wants to work there. So your business becomes like an airport. People just come in and then they take a shuttle out of it. So just understanding those different dimensions within the entrepreneurial scope is quite important for the business owner. Yeah.
Just to have this clear, Rebecca and Festus, so you're meeting for the very first time?
Yes.
No, you are.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ephraim is in the studios with us. But before I bring Ephraim onto the microphone, today we'll draw so much on the untold chapter in the entrepreneurial journey, which is letting go to grow. It is common that most of us, we hang on to things even when it is time that we let go. You see, when you start a business, you are the CEO, the cleaner, you the marketer, you the accountant. Sometimes
HR, everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes the delivery guy too.
Yeah.
Yesterday somebody said, I sell sausages. I said, oh, when did you get into sausages? I said, I'm selling. Do you want me to deliver? So she is the business owner. She's also delivering the sausages.
Yeah.
But you see, but what happens when your hustle grows into a company? When it is time to delegate, to transition, or even step back from certain roles, how do you know when you are ready? How do you shift your mindset to match your company's evolution? Ephraim, I'd like to bring you to the microphone right now. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize for my lateness.
But also, there's a fine. We agreed that you're gonna buy breakfast.
That's not. Hey,
Yeah. Well, you're not here.
yeah,
We
that
agreed
apparently
to
is the fine. Eh?
that. Yeah.
So does it consider past transgressions, or it's just today?
Today. Just
Starting
for
to
today.
just for today, or starting today?
Just for today.
Just for today.
Yes.
Okay, no worries. I'll take orders. I'll bring the sausage. I'll deliver.
CEO, you're doing everything.
I'll do. Yes, I'll the chief chef, the delivery man, oh yeah. How are you guys?
Good.
We're fantastic. Maybe I should ask you a question. I should have given you an introduction, but today, no. What was that hardest role, Ephraim? Hardest role for you to delegate in any of the businesses that you have run, and why did you hold on to that for so long?
Okay, so for me, I would say, so there were two roles, right? One was in sales, and the other one was with procurement. And I think it had to do with dealing with stakeholders beyond the company. I used to have salespeople who would, for the lack of a better word, let money fall through the cracks. That one was a given. So I would get frustrated because I'm like, these people, it's so easy to solve some of these issues. When you get into the service industry, you find yourself dealing with a situation where you have a client wanting X, but because this person who is dealing with the client believes, and I say believes because you empower the person, but they still that mentality that at the end of the day, I'm not the boss, so there are certain decisions I can't make. No matter how many times you tell them, you're like, yeah, if the client, let me give you the example of, let's say, trying to close a sale. The client wants a particular discount, and they're pushing for the discount. And you know that, okay, I can give this person a discount, and that discount, that loss on the product is a form of marketing because this person is going to bring me X, Y, and Z. But the person who's dealing with the client is like, look, this is not my business. I'm not the boss. I can't take a decision of reducing the price to the point where we make a loss. And for me, it was one of those things where that was just one example. I would find a situation where when they're dealing with a supplier, how they negotiate. Again, they are not as aggressive in dealing with how to get the best value for whatever we're looking for from this person. So for me, that was one of the hardest because I think sometimes I'd sit back and look and I'm like, okay, it puts me in a position where I end up having to micromanage some of these people.
Yeah.
Writing an email. Someone writes an email, they copy you, and they have English was left at home when they came to work. Grammar is off, punctuation, and you're like, this does not reflect badly on the individual alone. It also reflects badly on the company because it says a lot about the caliber of people that we hire. But you find sometimes these people don't even have a problem when granted, maybe back then there was no ChatGPT, but to help with writing emails. But you find someone would it's not that they don't have the capacity to use the right grammar and punctuation, but there's a certain level of laziness associated with how they carry out, like that they don't pay attention to the details when they're writing the email. And you find some of these emails are so important to our business that it's like, So those are the ones I when it came to dealing with external parties, it was one of the hardest to let go of.
I think for me it's totally different because I've run a business before and I still feel bad. I at some point I still blame myself. I don't know if it was my fault. I think someone mentioned to me that I am a perfectionist and that's why I failed at everything, because I felt like no one would do it better. I was the HR, I was the marketing person, I was the delivery lady. So I felt like every time I would give someone to do the work, they would never do it the right way. I feel I'm not satisfied. At some point, I coiled back and I said, I think I have bad manners. I think I need to change on a few things. Why do I think I'm the only one who can do it best? But also because of the disappointment that would come with the other person doing them. That's why I got bored along the way. I still think I would do the same up to now. I still think I would be insisting and like, I need to read. Can I have a look at that email before you send it? Like, I am that annoying.
Do you think it's right when people say that you are, as a leader, you are only as good and competent as the people that you hire because they are a reflection of who you are as a person?
I think honestly for me, I feel like it's a flawed way to look at it because again, you're dealing with a lot of variables. But I truly believe that you rub off on your team based on how you carry yourself. One, expectations. And not expectations just of what you expect of them, but what they expect of you. There's some leaders who are... We were talking about somebody recently amongst a group of friends. Yes, we're gossiping about someone, but we were talking about.
It's all right.
No, but actually, it was actually a conversation. It was not like we're saying that this person is a bad person.
Ephraim, there's what they call health gossip.
Really, I didn't know. So we're not talking about this person to say, oh, this person is the worst. No, we're just talking about that style of leadership, and we're like, this individual is an anxious leader. And the reason why that came up was because an anxious leader in this context is somebody who they operate from a point of, she mentioned it, a point of fear, a point of you have expectations of the worst, which is okay. As any leader, you should plan for it, but that is your that's your default setting when it comes to dealing with circumstances and situations. And we were just reflecting on the fact that what it does to your team is that you project your anxiety onto them. So even the way they perform that job, they don't know when they're doing the right thing or not, because they don't know what's expected of them and also what to expect of you. And so as a leader, that will happen. But I can't say necessarily that, or if you see someone underperforming, that it's the boss's fault. And I'm saying this because there's so much context around underperformance within an organization. Coming back to what we're saying about the emails. I realized that the reason why my team were failing to communicate well in a written form was simply because they didn't understand the gravity at which people perceived their emails. And it seems like such a trivial thing, but someone would be like, writing thanks or putting abbreviation in emails has a certain level of unprofessionalism that you can maybe do it internally, but the moment you now start dealing with stakeholders, there's just a certain decorum you have to have.
Thanks is all wrong in all aspects.
You can say thanks, but but when you say thanks, then you put BR for best regards. I'm like, there's a limit. Now it's acceptable, but back in the day, there was a limit to how much you could abbreviate in Ongo, see you later, SYL. I don't know if that's
BR, I took forever to understand what BR was.
Yeah, be right back.
Like, what is BR?
OMW, on my way. Like,
have the characters run out?
Rebecca, let me ask this question. We find ourselves in so many situations of this nature, especially when we are founders, when we are business leaders. We just don't want to let go of so many roles because we feel our teams will not deliver to the expectations. If it's writing a proposal, you feel like maybe the proposal will not be accepted until you have gone through it and verified for now you can send. Why do so many founders struggle to let go of roles even when it's clearly time they should be letting go?
I think most people refuse or reject change in general. We don't like change. So if you look at it from a human perspective, we are driven by our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And most things are actually driven by our subconscious mind. And then we use our conscious mind to explain this is why we're doing the thing and this is why it all makes sense. And if you understand that the subconscious mind is in place in order for you to survive, this is like the main role of the subconscious mind is let's stay alive. And the best way to stay alive is doing whatever you've been doing so far, because you're not dead, right? You're survived. Great, let's stay here. And the same when you cross the road, you've probably tried this. Cross the road, you're halfway there, a car comes. Instinctively, we run back instead of forward, right? Because our mind understands that where we have already been is safe. So if we start by understanding that we want to stay safe, we want to stay alive, and that's the subconscious mind getting into its place saying, we want things to be the way that they've always been. So we understand that people, human beings, we reject change. We don't want it when we don't have to. Now add to that you're an entrepreneur that has built up this business from scratch. You understand how much sweat, tears, blood have been put into this business. And you're thinking, there's no way an employee is going to give themselves as much to this business as I have. Right, so there's rejection coming from so many different angles saying we don't want change. We want to stay the exact same way that it is. But the thing is, in order for any change to happen, we need to be able and willing to let go of what is there, not knowing what is coming. So in order to
That's
change,
a huge risk, though.
it is. But life, in all good ways, requires
It's about
risk.
Yeah.
Anything
Is
worthy
life
in
itself
life.
not a risk anyway?
Anything worthy in life getting comes with a long period of uncertainty. So we need to be willing to take the steps not knowing where it's going. And adding to that, having an employee coming in and taking over from something that you have built from scratch. You have perfected it because you've been in it for such a long time and because you've given your everything to it. Now you have someone who's coming in and who's like has no idea. It takes a long time to train someone to do something really well. And we need to be okay with having a period of time where there will be mistakes. This person will mess it up. This person will not be doing it in the way that we want to do it. And still being able and willing to give them the autonomy and the agency to try things out for themselves and seeing, is this going to work or not? And that is a huge blow to the ego. We do not want to do that. It's so much easier to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But eventually you're going to burn out as an entrepreneur. You're gonna just end up burning yourself out so much that maybe one day you're gonna have to close down your business. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer that you have a life that you can actually maintain long term? You have a business that you're able to maintain long term, and then you have that willingness to let people become the kind of person who can do the task well. You can start training them, and you allow for this period of transition.
I think I just want to chime in a bit. I think I want to talk about the fact that realistically, it becomes almost, not say impossible, but it becomes next to impossible when you're growing a business to start thinking about, oh, I'm going to bring somebody in and I'm going to let go because the stakes are already too high. And what I mean by that is that most businesses in that infancy stage are in survival mode. And that's a given. Even if you received a good amount of capital to start your business, the expectation is that capital is going to be invested heavily and you need to bring people on board. But again, the stakes are high. And when the stakes are high, I think the mindset of most entrepreneurs is, it's on me. This person I'm hiring is not going to be asked what happened to the investment if you got an investor. This driver or delivery person is not going to be asked about the success of the profit of the business this month. At the end of the day, to be my wife who will ask me, or my spouse who say, all this money you invested, where has it gone? So you find, I think psychologically, you're already in that state where you're like, I need to put myself in a position where I can control the factors that could lead to my own failure.
And you end up being a micromanager.
Exactly. And I think that is the reality of this conversation we're having. The question should be, then how do we ensure that we can still delegate and not feel, again, anxious that if we don't hold these people accountable or we help them with our work, that we won't succeed?
Allow me to bring in Festus here, and I'm going to give you a real-time example. This gentleman was so gifted with people skills. He was just a technician. All right?
Yeah.
He worked under someone in an agency. And later, just being a technician, he was trusted because he worked as a front person helping brands do their activations. Later on, brands started talking to him individually because they did not need the CEO of the company. He's the guy who made things happen. So they started to trust him, and he found some capital, and he built an agency by himself. He was just too lucky. He built an agency, and he had created an ecosystem around him of people who trust in what he does. But he has no clue on how to run the agency. He has no clue about running the business, and he's in there. Now he has to do a strategy, he has to do so many things. People trust him, he has to be there for things to happen. He calls in people to come and offer help. It is too hard for him to walk away from what he cannot do best, because without his face, then the other brands cannot call anyone in that company to do business. Basically, they say, we are not working with you because of the company. We work with you because of you. In that situation, how do you let go?
Wow. I think that in whatever frame of life, letting go is hard, right? It's this, what you're describing to me is like a mother has carried her baby for 9 months, right? And finally the child is born. And you are asking her to let go of the child for someone else to care for the child.
It happened to my mother.
Right?
Somebody came and said,
They
we
wanted to
want
take
to
you away."
adopt this baby. And my father
You
said,
looked that so
"Give
easy to
them."
be adopted.
You see,
Wow.
it's practically impossible, right? But of course, in the early stages, you want to dress the child, you want to feed the child, you want to do everything, which
You literally feel you're the only person who can take
who
care of
can,
that.
right? I think the food I give or the lactose that I'm providing is the most suitable. But like every baby, at some point the child has to grow. The child has to stand by himself or by herself. And letting go, I think the mindset, it starts with the mindset. Letting go, acknowledging the fact that, number one, I'm not going to be here forever, right? What am I building, right? Am I building something that only revolves around me, or I'm building something that that I want to outlive me, right? That's the first thing. Number two is, so once I have that mindset, then that, from the very beginning stages of the business, people need to start thinking about, how does this thing go beyond me, right? From the very starting stage. I think one of the first errors is that you keep everything around yourself. When I started training and designing, I used to do all the designs by myself, because I feel that, again, I'm creative, I'm able to imagine the scenarios, because we do practical trainings, not just sessions, right? So if I want to teach empathy, for example, I don't come and say, okay, what is empathy? What are the types of empathy? I imagine, what is the best way to talk about empathy, such that once you go home, you might not remember the definition, but you would remember the practical element of it. So maybe I get you to squat, and then in that pain, I tell you a story, and then I say, okay, you're free to tap anybody over the course of the squatting, and then you find other people are squatting in the circle. But then I say, I say, when I tap you, you're free to do anything. Then I eventually tap you, and you go out and get some water to drink, not thinking about the other person who is in pain. Then you come back, and I'm like, did you think about tapping Rebecca because she was shaking on her knees? You're like, but you didn't say that, right? Because empathy is not something we are told. It's something we imagine. It's something we want to do. Then the next time you are like, by the way, if I have a privilege, then I need to extend that privilege. So it's the same thing. Number one, what's the mindset that you are having behind the business? Number two, what identity are you taking, right? So there's the first point, when I'm the engine, right? So I'm the operations, let's put it that way. Then the next stage is I have to be the orchestrator, right? People feel that if I let go, I'm losing power, right? And because I'm losing power, right, then I become insignificant. But you can think about it as, if I let go, then I'm multiplying power. I'm empowering others to be able to do more of what I'm doing. So yes, sometimes people are like, I don't want to talk to the company. I want to talk to the individual. Sometimes when they call,
In most cases, the business is the individual.
yes, when they call AFE Consulting, they are like, I want Emmanuel, I want Festus to do the training. I'm like, by the way, I have somebody. So you need to be able to get to that point where you also get the people to trust the next person. I was talking to a business, the guy does haircuts. I was doing an analysis of his business, and he was like, I have so many clients and I don't know how to manage it. I was like, have you thought about segmenting and then maybe visiting some of the clients at home and cutting their hair? It's like, once I leave the shop, the people that come will also leave.
Close down.
Because-
Somebody told me that about the bar. Said if I'm out of the bar, then people won't drink
come,
here.
yeah.
Someone didn't tell me about that. I experienced it. Seriously. It's like you are the beer, you are the whiskey, you are the thing they drink.
You're the cocktail.
You're the cocktail. If you're not in the bar, then the business won't run. I mean, a friend of yours, because they are drinking an individual literally, because they call you, say, we're at your place and you're not here. We are sitting here for 5 minutes. If you don't show up, we are leaving. Not that
Yeah.
you're that special, not that, it's just that vibe. So I don't know. It literally turned out that business was me. If I'm not there, then it won't work.
Yeah, I think you need to take an intentional decision to step away from the business, so that there's the business and then there's you, right? Unless if you want to brand yourself as the business, which in effect, it will not grow as you want it to be. So I was speaking to one of the big businesses in the city, and the lady was saying, when I started, everybody was coming because of me. They're like, once she's there, I would patronize the restaurant. Then if I don't post, then so when I post, I get more clients. Like, people are like, Rebecca is here, she has posted, that means she's around. So we are going to go there. And then I eventually started to realize that they were coming because of me and not because of the brand. So I started intentionally, I'll be around, like in the space, but I'll be inside, so that they don't see me. Initially it will hurt a little. You might lose some people, but the ripple effect, the impact it would have is way more than whatever benefit you are managing, trying to be the face, the body, the legs, the thighs, I don't know, all the different parts of the business.
Allow me to bring in Rebecca. Of course, before we began, we were conscious how we will manage our time. Rebecca on leadership, because you're a fan of leadership.
I am.
What does healthy leadership evolution look like in a growing company? And what should founders watch out for emotionally?
So I usually tell people that I'm not going to tell you what type of leader that you're supposed to be, but I need you to make a decision about what kind of leader do you want to be. And then we're going to look at what kind of leader are you today and where are the gaps. I feel like most people, when they sit down and actually think about it, they know what kind of leader that they want to be. And then we start asking, okay, so this is who you want to be. How does that actually show up in the daily life? Oh, but because leadership isn't that easy, right? It's pretty hard to be an outstanding leader while you're going through stress, while you're going through big decisions, while you're going through, maybe you have personal stuff, healthcare, divorce, maybe your grandparent fell, and has a broken hip somewhere. So there's so many things that we're dealing with. And then also now you have to be the leader of a bunch of other people, a whole organization. So emotionally, it's really, really difficult. Personally, I love living in Rwanda because I feel like Paul Kagame is just like the embodiment of value-based leadership, right? I feel like when you look at him as a leader and the capacity that he has when it comes to saying stuff like, let's cut diplomatic ties with Belgium. Most leaders are never able to make a decision like that and then stand strong in it. The very fact that he can come out and make tough decisions and say, no matter what, we're going to figure it out. Nobody can come and tell us there's something we can't do. I feel like that is such powerful, powerful leadership. And one thing that he has enabled people to do, if you look at Rwandans in general, a lot of Rwandans are very proud to be Rwandan. Can you have an organization where you make people feel proud that they're in that organization? Can you make them want to show up for that organization? Can you make them almost like brag, yeah, I work here? The same way people, and they're like, I work for Google, I work for Microsoft. There's a sense of pride in that. And I feel like if you're the kind of leader that can make people want to show up, make people want to extend themselves, make people want to feed into the results of the organization, make people want to embody the values of that organization, I think that's when you have really strong leadership. But you as a leader have to figure out, what are the values that I want to implement into this? I'm not going to tell you these are good values, these are bad values. Like, you have to figure that out as a leader. It has to be your decision, because if you cannot lead yourself, if you cannot decide what is the kind of organization that you want to have, it's going to be really hard for you to lead other people. And you can't just lead other people based on what I tell you.
Doesn't it get difficult in even just finding the leader within you?
Yeah.
Do you read it in books? Do you find it in someone and you?
I have a very controversial thought. And it's something that I think it stemmed out of that conversation I mentioned earlier about the anxious leader.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I'm slowly learning is the best way to live a life in general. What they said makes sense. He talked of empathy. She talked about embodying. You need to make a decision of who you want to become. But before you get to that point, you need to know who you are and be okay with that reality. Then slowly tweak where you need to tweak. Because I noticed that the biggest challenge you find with a lot of people, even on a personal level, when we talk of self-leadership, is that we have not yet figured out who we are.
Yeah.
If you're not a morning person, don't start scheduling meetings at 9 or at 8 or 7. Go, we need to have breakfast meetings.
It's a struggle.
My guy, sleep. You will have your meetings in the evening. Like, if you know, I'm being serious, and I think that is what happens to a lot of us, is because we have this mindset that we need to skin the cat this way, and everybody has to embody. What's the word? You need to be hardworking. You need to be a visionary. You need to be this.
You need to be an early riser.
Realistically, you are not that kind of person.
Yeah.
So you have to say, who am I? Who is Ephraim? Who is Juliana? Who is Rebecca? Who am I? And then you say, this version of myself, is it the best version for the work we want to do?
Yeah.
And then don't try to do a 180. I was about to say 360. You'll find yourself at the same place. You do a 180 flip, and you're like, okay, today I'm gonna be waking up early, going to bed late. Waking up early, going to bed early. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna drink coffee. I'm just giving these because they're semantics. But in essence, you try to tick these boxes of what it means to be a leader. The main problem with that is that it's not sustainable. You see it. So today, this person is having breakfast meetings, but and then they get 1 month, 2 months in, and then they slowly go back to old patterns.
I have something I want to add to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I absolutely agree. I think there's, and I spoke about this earlier, like, you have to become the person first. And the thing is, we think sometimes that we are what we do, but that's not really the case, right? Who we are becomes what we do naturally. So if you become the kind of person who loves going to the gym, you're going to go to the gym. You're not going to force yourself to do it. So a lot of people, what they do is that they focus so much on the doing. And then when you're focused only on the doing, you rely on willpower and motivation that are very fleeting emotions, feelings. And they're going to run out eventually. So you have to become the kind of person who wants to do the things, who enjoys to do the thing, that wants to just be this kind of person. And when I talk about what kind of leader do you want to be, and we're looking at not just what do they do, but what are their values? What is important to them? What are they driven by? The reason I like doing that as an exercise first is because it works so well as a mirror to who you are today. So when you say, this is the person that I want to be, and we start looking at, okay, but where are the gaps? You can use that to see, okay, this is actually the person that I am today. And these are the places where I fall short, where I don't want to fall short. And the conversation is also, okay, I want to be this type of leader. Why do you want to be that type of leader? Is it because somebody told you that you need to be an early bird? Is it because somebody told you that successful people do this? Or is it because you actually feel like it's aligned with the vision that you have, with the life that you want to lead, with the person that you want to be? Because I feel like there's a lot to be said about who we are based on who we desire to be. I very often say that who we desire to be is more authentic to us, to our true selves, than who we've been programmed to be. Because the person that we've grown into being is so impacted by the people that we grew up around, the people that raised us, where we went to school, the ideas that were planted in our heads in terms of what is right and what is wrong, and what are values, what is good and what is bad. But who we desire to be comes from a deepness within us. So when we're looking at, this is the person that I want to be, and we understand this is why I want to be them, and yes, this is absolutely aligned, not just an idea that I have about what makes a good leader. And then we start looking at, okay, if we're going to be really honest with ourselves, which is the best thing to do. We're gonna be really honest
not
with
often
ourselves,
done.
and we're gonna trigger ourselves so much because we're gonna have to be really honest with where do we fall short, where are the gaps between where we want to be, who we want to be, and who we are now.
Yeah, I think then it even makes it easy, not to cut you, it makes it easier to become that person because then you've understood
Who you are.
right? You're coming from point A and you're trying to get to point B. You understand the gaps and you know what vehicle, what shuttle you have to use to get there. And that self-discovery, self-awareness, like he was talking about, my strengths, my weaknesses, my environment, right? My worldview, right? What shaped it? If I grew up in a community in Kayonza versus I grew up in Kigali versus I grew up in the US, how does that affect how I think about the world, how I see the world, how I see people, and the values that I have been able to inculcate as a person, right? And most of the times it becomes, they said this, the big names said we should wake up at 4 a.m. So everybody's trying to wake up at 4 a.m.
Rub yourself with the ice cubes.
Rub yourself
with ice cubes and banana.
So my colleague here should just accept that working out is not your thing, and do not waste your money on subscription.
But could you do something and later become that?
Do you know what's even shocking? If you listen to so many successful people, there are so many conflicting approaches and methodologies on how they achieved success that if you don't accept that this is who I am and I'm gonna chart my own path, you'll find today you are using banana to wipe your face. And tomorrow you're using oranges. It's and you find someone is like, I don't take sugar, another person is like, sugar gets me going. Someone is like, I eat healthy, I'm a vegetarian, another one is like, I only eat meat. And they're both equally successful, and you are so confused because you have not owned the identity you're pursuing.
There's no authenticity, right? You're not authentic in yourself. You're just trying to mimic Jesse and Rebecca.
We can have this conversation for a whole day.
Clearly.
The masterclass, like you say.
One last thing I should say,
yes.
Jesse, is like what Ephraim was saying. It's like a lion trying to be a bee. You know, sometimes when we talk about leadership, they talk about the lion, be the kind of leader. But then when you study the pride, you realize the lion sleeps
the whole time. He
whole
doesn't
time.
hunt.
half of the
The
day.
lion
They just bring him food.
And then
And
the
then he
bee
eats.
is just task oriented. So which one should I be? Task oriented or
just laid back,
purposeful?
chill.
Just relax.
Be the lioness.
And we need both, right? We need
You can even be both if that's who you are. I think just coming back to this, if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, go and study temperaments, and then also go do a psychometric test. Those things will help you. And when I tell you help you, they will change your life, because you will learn if you're a sanguine and someone is a choleric, temperamented individual, how you guys decide you're going to approach your careers and your businesses and your leadership, completely different. Same thing with your psychometric test, your personality test. You can do Myers-Briggs or whichever
Where
one
do
makes
they
sense
do
for you.
personality tests from in Kigali?
You can even do a lot of them.
You can do that
Online.
online as well.
The problem
Online.
with me is that my test depends on how I feel that day.
Yeah.
I'll have 6 different personalities throughout the week.
Which
Me
is
and you
also
both
a
make
discovery, because now you're like, meaning that
multiple
my
people.
leadership style, I need
Rebecca,
to.
me and you both, my personalities change every other time. So it depends on the situation.
All
and
right,
then-
20 minutes after 9 o'clock.
Wow.
I knew it would be very difficult to bring this conversation to an end. But we have to do a transition. And so today is such a very important day in the life of living entrepreneurship. And
Salty.
I see you guys getting emotional.
I know.
Who are those?
I look forward to the great days ahead as Rebecca and Festus, rise early every Tuesday to just come and bring this heavy stuff to digest on. But I want to give the floor to Ephraim, who is right now paving way for Rebecca and Festus to say something.
Okay, in a few words, in the interest of time, I think first and foremost, I want to thank Jesse and Juliana for this platform, for allowing me to be a part
I
of
hate
this.
goodbyes. I'm gonna take my headphones off. I'm gonna take my headphones off.
Yeah. No, I would want to say thank you again to the board of Royal FM for again trusting me, for the team of Royal FM again supporting us. I know there's Kefa, who is behind the scenes there with the cameras. There's I was about to say DJ Muturaje. There's Fred, who has made sure that we are always on air. But more especially, I want to thank the people who tuned in. I think it was one of those experiences that you look at and you're like, this wouldn't have made sense if people who listened to this did not give us the kind of feedback that they did, both good and bad. And I think we have grown from it. I personally have grown from it, and I really thank the Lord for this platform. And so as, again, I try to let go, quote unquote, of my baby, which was this Tuesday slot, I think I've left you in very capable hands. Extremely, actually, like I said, if I was a leader in a company, I'd want to hire people who I would consider better than me, because I'd want them to do a better job than me so that I could probably make more money. In this case, what has driven me with this show has never been any monetary gain. It has been the fact that I wanted to share knowledge with the world. I wanted to share knowledge with my fellow Rwandans or people just doing business in Rwanda to say, hey, you can do things better. You can live your dreams. And this is probably some information that can help you. And so now I've gotten to this point where I'm like, I think there are people who can do a far better job than me. And that's Rebecca and Festus. So it's emotional, but yeah, much love.
It's very emotional for me. I had goodbyes. I know. I'm like, oh, did he have to say that? Yeah, but we I personally would like to appreciate you like so much. I get very emotional. I think I'm just gonna miss you, but I don't want to say more. Like this should be enough.
Ephraim, we want to appreciate you so very much from the bottom of my heart, the incredible knowledge you brought to this platform. I know so many people who said, I started to listen to Kigali in the morning when I had Ephraim on the radio. And I know there's someone there who is feeling like Juliana, saying, no, it cannot be. So we'd like to appreciate you so much, and also just for the capacity to bring Festus,
these good people to us,
and Rebecca to come and
amazing
sit
human beings
on this microphone. I know you are around, and we will pick on you when we need you.
Once in a while, hopefully, by the grace of God. Once in a while, a very long while.
While is yet to be defined.
We need to define it properly. There has to be consensus on what this while is. It's not 1 week.
Have you considered being a pastor on the other side of life? Because honestly,
I think he is.
I think this was my ministry.
Wow.
But I preached on Tuesdays. So I think that's
just like your mother always says that my son is very intelligent. I think you are very intelligent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we don't want to miss you, so we'll call you to bring your intelligence back to the radio.
Once in a while. Long while.
Anytime so soon. Rebecca, Festus, welcome to Kigali in the morning. And we look forward to the amazing days ahead that we'll spend here together. It's 24 minutes after 9 o'clock in the morning. We have news coming through next, and then Kigali in the morning will proceed.